Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital appearances and goings reveal that Veronica Ronnie Bard's exit is brewing. Suckers also just said farewell to Lois Cerullo as Rena Sofer departed the part, at least for the time being. Brooke Lynn Quartermaine participated some emotional scenes with Lois in the October 24th occasion. Although Brooke Lynn isn't prepared to forgive Lois and get their relationship completely back on track, she softened toward her mama and is going to miss her. That's because Lois got Brooke Lynn's blessing on a new job that'll take her to some transnational hotspots. Lois will be serving as the director of Blaze aka Allison Rogers' forthcoming stint, so she'll be off traveling the world for a while. That'll give Brooke Lynn's heart a chance to heal a bit more while Lois waits for her to be ready to bond again. The alternate Brooke Lynn needs her. Lois has pledged to come running home to her. This means Lois is getting an open, concluded exit that should pave the way for her eventual return. A source at GH verified to SOD that the door is always open when it comes to Sofer reprising the part nearly down the line. Of course, we should also talk about Ronnie's imminent departure since Erica Slezak has formally wrapped rephotographing on her short-term gig. Ronnie was no way meant to stick around for long, so observers can anticipate her to leave Port Charles in the not-too-distant future. The show's formerly been dropping some suggestions about that in the dialogue, especially now that Drew Kane is hoping to buy the Quartermaine manse from Ronnie. Whether Ronnie agrees to that trade or not, she'll make a major advertisement during the week of October 27th to 31st. That could involve dealing the Quartermaine house and leaving city since Ronnie is chancing strife rather of happiness and PC. Still, Ronnie will leave plenitude of drama behind, and it's possible she could return down the road. Commodity's obviously over with Monica Quartermaine's will, so Tracy Quartermaine may expose Martin Gray if he's behind the shady changes that gave Ronnie control of the manse. General Hospital spoilers say there's much further excitement ahead, so stick with us for other important appearances and goings news. A shadow from the past, secrets and vengeance at a Port Charles baptism. The late afternoon sun cast long, dramatic shadows across the Port Charles Community Church, bathing the stained glass windows in a kaleidoscope of fiery light. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of lilies and a fragile, hard-won peace. Today was a day for blessings, for new beginnings. At the center of it all was the infant, swaddled in a generations-old christening gown, being gently cradled by his beaming parents, Detective Harrison Chase and Brooke Lynn Quartermaine. This was the baptism of Leo Quartermaine Ashton, a symbol of hope and the merging of two very different Port Charles dynasties. The pews were a microcosm of the city itself. The Quartermaines, in their understated, expensive silk and wool, sat on one side, a fortress of old money and older secrets. The other side was a more eclectic mix of cops, singers, and those tied to the family by love and loyalty. But the most significant figure, the one whose presence was both a miracle and a looming storm cloud, was that of Robert Scorpio. The legendary WSB agent, now older, grayer, but with eyes that still missed nothing, stood as the child's godfather. His presence was a testament to his deep, complicated bond with Chase, a relationship forged in the line of duty and tempered into something resembling father and son. For Robert, this day was a balm on an old, festering wound. It was a chance to participate in a pure, uncomplicated ritual of love and family, a stark contrast to the morally gray, violent world he had inhabited for most of his life. As he looked at Chase, so full of pride and hope, he felt a profound sense of vicarious joy. This was the life he had never been able to build for himself, a stable home, a loving family, a legacy not built on lies and espionage. He clutched the small, velvet-lined box containing the silver rattle he'd bought for Leo, a simple, heartfelt gift that felt more meaningful than any intelligence coup he'd ever pulled off. The ceremony began, the priest's voice a soothing drone. Holy water was sprinkled on Leo's forehead, and the baby let out a small, startled cry that was met with soft, affectionate laughter from the congregation. Chase and Brooke Lynn exchanged a look of pure, unadulterated love. Robert felt a lump form in his throat. This was right. This was good. But in the world of Port Charles, peace is a transient visitor, always shadowed by the ghosts of the past. And one such ghost was about to make a spectacular, uninvited entrance. As the priest concluded the blessing and the congregation began to rise, a soft, clear voice cut through the murmur of congratulations. "I'm sorry I'm late. I wouldn't have missed this for the world." All heads turned toward the entrance of the chapel. Framed in the great oak doorway, silhouetted by the setting sun, stood a young woman. She was in her late 20s, with an arresting, sharp beauty that was both elegant and slightly dangerous. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe, professional ponytail, and she wore a simple, impeccably tailored black dress that was somber enough for the occasion yet hinted at a powerful, confident physique. Her eyes, a startling and familiar shade of piercing blue, scanned the room before landing, with unerring accuracy, on Robert Scorpio. The air left Robert's lungs. It was like looking at a phantom. He didn't know her face, but those eyes, he had seen them in his nightmares for decades. They were the eyes of Ronnie, his former partner, the man he had been forced to kill in a tragic, chaotic confrontation that had haunted him ever since. The woman's smile was small, polite, and didn't reach her eyes. "My name is Isabella Rossi," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly in the stunned silence. "But my father, the man who raised me, he called me Bella. Bella Ronnie." The name Ronnie landed in the sacred space like a grenade. A collective, sharp intake of breath was heard. Old-timers who knew the history, Max Scorpio, Felicia Jones, stiffened, their faces paling. Chase, who knew the broad strokes of the story, instinctively moved closer to Brooklyn and his son, his protective police instincts kicking in. Robert felt the world tilt on its axis. The velvet box in his hand felt like a lead weight. He was frozen, his mind racing, tumbling back through the years to a rain-slicked street, the sound of gunfire, and the lifeless eyes of his friend and rival. Ronnie had a daughter? It was impossible. He would have known. He would have. Bella began to walk slowly down the aisle, her heels clicking a deliberate rhythm on the stone floor. She stopped a few feet from the stunned family at the altar. Her gaze was fixed on Robert. "I've spent my life hearing stories about you, Uncle Robert," she said, the title dripping with a venomous sweetness. "My father spoke of you so often. His brilliant partner. His best friend." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "He told me that if anything ever happened to him, I should find you. That you would protect me. That you owed him." The accusation was subtle but unmistakable. Robert finally found his voice, though it was rough with shock. I didn't know. Ronnie never mentioned a daughter." "He was protecting me," Bella replied smoothly, her eyes glistening with what looked like unshed tears, though her posture remained rigid, combative. "From the life. From the enemies he'd made. But he's gone now. The man who raised me, the only father I ever knew, passed away 6 months ago. And before he died, he gave me a letter. A letter for you." She reached into her small clutch purse and produced a sealed, yellowed envelope, its edges frayed with age. She held it out to Robert. His name was scrawled on the front in Ronnie's unmistakably messy, aggressive handwriting. The baptism was forgotten. The celebration of new life was now overshadowed by the ghost of a violent death. The sanctity of the church had been violated by a secret 2 decades in the making. Encouraging words, the web of trust and deception. The reception at the Quartermain mansion was a somber, tense affair. The joyful chatter that should have filled the grand halls was replaced by hushed, anxious conversations. Leo, oblivious to the drama, was passed between adoring family members, a tiny beacon of innocence in a gathering storm. Robert had retreated to the library with Mac, Felicia, and a deeply concerned Chase. He held the unopened letter from Ronnie as if it were a live explosive. "You don't have to open that now, Robert," Felicia said gently, placing a hand on his arm. "Whatever it is, it can wait. Today is about Chase and Brooklyn and Leo." "No, it can't," Robert said, his voice hollow. "She made sure of that. Showing up here, at the baptism, that was no accident. That was a calculated move. She wanted an audience. She wanted maximum impact." Max Scorpio, his brow furrowed with worry, nodded in agreement. She's got an agenda, Robert. That much is clear. But what? Revenge? Money? I need to know what Ronnie has to say from beyond the grave, Robert muttered, his thumb tracing his old partner's name. With a grimace, he slit the envelope open and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The writing was Ronnie's, but it was neater, more deliberate, as if written with great care. Scorpio. If you're reading this, then two things are true: I'm dead, and my Bella has found you. Don't bother trying to figure out how you didn't know about her. Her mother was a deep-cover operative I met in Lisbon. It was brief, intense, and secret. When she turned up pregnant, she wanted out. She knew the life would get her killed. She disappeared, and I let her, on the condition I could provide for the child. I set up trusts, shell companies, all of it. Isabella was raised in a small village in Italy, safe and loved, by a couple I paid handsomely. She knows me as her father, and she knows what I was. Here's the part you're not going to like, old friend. The reason I'm entrusting her to you. The people who killed Anna? The ones we tangled with for years? They're not gone. They've just evolved. They've rebranded, restructured, and they are more powerful and insidious than ever. They've infiltrated governments, corporations, maybe even the WSB. And they have a long memory. I've spent years gathering intelligence on them. Names, dates, financial trails. It's all on an encrypted drive. And I've hidden it. Bella knows where it is, but she doesn't know what it is. She just knows it's her inheritance. I've trained her, Robert. Not as an agent, but as a survivor. She's smart, resourceful, and she can handle herself. But she's not prepared for what's coming. They will come for her. They know the daughter of Ronnie K would have the key to their destruction. They will use any means necessary to get to her and to that drive. Your job, the debt you owe me, is to keep her safe. Protect her with your life. Help her unlock the drive and use the information to burn their organization to the ground. She's all I have left in this world, Scorpio. She's my legacy. Don't you dare let my daughter die because of my war. Ronnie. Robert finished reading and slowly lowered the letter. The room was silent. He looked from Mac's grim face to Felicia's horrified one, and finally to Chase's, which was set in a mask of determination. What is it, Robert? Chase asked. What does it say? Robert took a deep breath. He had to bring them in. He needed allies. He paraphrased the letter's contents, his voice low and urgent. He spoke of the new, evolved threat, the encrypted drive, and Ronnie's desperate plea for protection. So she's not here for revenge? Mac clarified. Not according to this, Robert said, tapping the letter. She's a target. And Ronnie has dropped her right in my lap, with a time bomb strapped to her back. It was then that they realized Bella was standing in the doorway, having silently entered. She had heard everything. So that's it, she said, her voice quieter now, the confrontational edge replaced by a simmering anger. All my life, I was kept in a gilded cage. Trained to fight, to shoot, to disappear, but never told why. All he would say was that the world was a dangerous place and that one day, I would need to find Robert Scorpio. I thought he meant you had wronged him. That this was about some personal debt. She shook her head, a bitter smile on her lips. But it's worse. He made me a pawn in his endless, stupid war. Robert stood and approached her slowly, his hands open, non-threatening. Bella. Isabella. Your father was a complicated man. Reckless, arrogant, but in the end, he was trying to protect you. He's given us a weapon, but to use it, we have to be smart. We have to be a team. This was the moment for encouraging words, for building the alliance they would need to survive. Listen to me, Robert said, his voice gaining the charismatic, commanding tone of the legendary Scorpio. Your father was right about one thing. I do owe him. And I owe you. I failed to save him, but I will not fail to protect you. But you have to trust me. He turned to include Chase, Mac, and Felicia. This isn't just my fight. This is a threat to everyone in this city. If this organization is as powerful as Ronnie says, then they're a threat to the PCPD, to the WSB, to every innocent person in Port Charles. We are your team now. Chase stepped forward, his detective's mind already working. He's right. We have the resources of the PCPD. We can offer you protective custody, investigate these leads legally. And my connections with the WSB, however strained, can help us identify the players on a global scale, Robert added. Felicia, with her vast network of contacts from her days as the Ice Princess, nodded. Discretion is key. We can work the shadows, find out what they know. Robert looked Bella directly in her piercing blue eyes. Your father didn't just send you to me for protection. He sent you to us. To this family. You're not a pawn, Bella. You're the key. And together, we can do what your father couldn't, we can end this, for good. But you have to let us in. You have to tell us where the drive is. Bella looked at the faces surrounding her, the seasoned spy, the steadfast police commissioner. The compassionate former agent, the honest and determined detective. For the first time, the mask of cold composure cracked, revealing the scared, manipulated young woman beneath. The encouragement, the offer of a real alliance, was a lifeline she hadn't known she needed. Okay, she whispered, a single tear finally escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. Okay. The drive, it's here. In Port Charles. My father said he hid it in the heart of the beast, where no one would think to look. He hid it at the Metro Court Hotel. Angry threats, the enemy revealed. The alliance was forged in the Quartermain Library, a pact of protection and vengeance. The plan was set in motion. They would retrieve the drive, decrypt it, and use Ronnie's intelligence to systematically dismantle the organization he had died fighting. The first step was for Bella to check into the Metro Court, under her real name, to establish a reason for her presence. Robert and Chase would act as backup, watching from a discreet distance. It seemed like a solid, cautious plan. But Ronnie's warning had been tragically prescient. The enemy was already there. They had been watching Robert Scorpio for years, knowing his connection to Ronnie. Bella's arrival had simply confirmed their worst fears and activated their operatives. As Bella approached the front desk of the sleek, modern hotel, she felt a familiar prickle on the back of her neck, the instinct her father had drilled into her. She was being watched. She completed her check-in, her senses on high alert, and took the elevator to her room on the 10th floor. As she slid the key card into the slot, she knew, with a chilling certainty, that she was not alone. The door swung open to reveal a dark, luxurious suite. And sitting calmly in an armchair by the window, a silenced pistol resting casually on his knee, was a man she had never seen before. He was impeccably dressed, with a calm, almost academic demeanor that was more terrifying than any thug's swagger. Welcome to Port Charles, Ms. Rossi, the man said, his voice a smooth, cultured baritone. Or should I call you Bella Ronnie? My employers have been very eager to make your acquaintance. Bella froze, her hand tightening on the strap of her bag. Her mind raced, assessing exits, potential weapons. The man smiled, a cold, lifeless expression. Please, don't do anything rash. My associate is in the hallway. And we have snipers with a clear line of sight to your friend, Mr. Scorpio, who is currently enjoying a very overpriced coffee in the lobby. It would be a shame for this day to end in more tragedy for him. He stood, pocketing the pistol but making it clear the threat was imminent. We know why you're here. We know what your father gave you. And we want it. I don't know what you're talking about, Bella said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Let's dispense with the denials, the man sighed, as if bored. Ronnie was a sentimental fool, but he was a brilliant intelligence gatherer. The drive he compiled as corporate property. You are going to take us to it, now. Or the consequences will be severe. He took a step closer, and the polite facade vanished, replaced by a gaze of pure, unadulterated malice. You think Scorpio and his band of small-town heroes can protect you? You have no idea what you're dealing with. We are not a gang. We are a hydra. You cut off one head, 2 more grow back. We are in your banks, your police stations, your hospitals. There is nowhere to run. He pulled out a phone and showed her a live feed. It was a camera shot, from across the street, focused on the entrance of the Quartermain mansion. Brooke Lynn was on the steps, bouncing a fussy Leo in her arms. A beautiful family, the man murmured. It would be a tragedy if something were to happen to them. A gas leak in that big, old house, so unpredictable. Or perhaps a simple, tragic car accident. Detective Chase spends so much time on the road. The threats were no longer vague. They were targeted, personal, and designed to break her. They were threatening the infant whose baptism she had just disrupted, the new family that had, in a small way, offered her shelter. You leave them out of this, Bella snarled, her fear transforming into a protective fury. That is entirely up to you, the man said. The drive. Now. Or I make a phone call, and the lovely baptism reception across town becomes awake. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. This is not a negotiation. This is an extinction-level event. You will give me what I want, or I will burn down everything and everyone Robert Scorpio holds dear, starting with that baby in his christening gown. Do you understand me? Bella stood her ground, her father's training and her own fierce will coalescing into a cold, hard resolve. The encouraging words from the Quartermain mansion echoed in her mind. You're not a pawn. You're the key. They had offered her a family. This monster was threatening to destroy it. She looked at the live feed of Brooke Lynn and Leo, then back into the cold eyes of the man who held their lives in his hands. She had to play this perfectly. She had to protect them. All right, she said, her voice a defeated whisper, buying time. I'll take you to it. But as she led him out of the room, her mind was racing, not of escape, but of counterattack. Robert Scorpio wasn't the only one who owed a debt. Ronnie's daughter had just been threatened, and the war her father had started was now hers to finish. The baptism's peace was shattered, replaced by the silent, deadly promise of a war that would engulf all of Port Charles. The angry threats had been made, and now, the retaliation would begin.